Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the beautiful song. We are looking forward to our worship of Holy Mother coming on the 22nd. So I thought this month I would devote my two talks to what I consider the two main teachings of Holy Mother. Last week we heard about her final message, and today we'll hear about her teachings on forbearance and contentment. And there was a phrase that Holy Mother used to use, Shojo shaman gunne or shonto shaman dhonne. This means there's no virtue equal to forbearance, no treasure equal to contentment. And we've seen before how practical the teachings of Holy Mother are, and how everything came out of her own life, how this, especially forbearance, how this was such a defining feature of her life, and how contentment follows directly from forbearance. So these are two very closely related ideas. No virtue equal to forbearance, and no treasure equal to content, to face so many difficulties throughout her life, and how these were so important to her, and this practice of forbearance, how this led directly to that peace and contentment that we see within her life. So we'll start with this idea of forbearance. Holy Mother uses this word sahya. We have other terms, sahana, titiksha. They all mean the same thing, that somehow we have to put up with the difficulties in life, whether it's physical pain or emotional difficulties, or that there's some things there's no getting around, there's no avoiding. This is just a very basic fact of life. And Holy Mother used to say that this would define whether we're successful in life or not, how we can put up with the problems of life. So there's a very nice phrase she used to use, Je shoy she roy, Je na shoy she na shoy. One who forbears endures, one who does not forbear perishes. So we have this wonderful teaching. Sri Ramakrishna, of course, also stressed this. He had his own nice way of saying this. In most of the Indian languages, the alphabet, there are 3 different S words, sa, sha, sha. And in Bengali, they're all pronounced the same way, sha, sha, sha. So they used to say that why do we have 3 different symbols, different letters, if they're all pronounced the same way? So Sri Ramakrishna used to say, because it's something that needs to be repeated 3 times. Sha means sahakore. Sha means forbear, 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 forbear. So this is why there's 3 of these letters in the Bengali alphabet. So what do we mean exactly by forbearance? We have a very standard definition that is very often quoted that we find in the Viveka Chudamani. Sahanam sarva dukhanam apratikara-purvakam chinta vilapa rahitam sa titiksha nigadyate. Patiently bearing all kinds of suffering and misery without doing anything to prevent it and without worry or complaint, that is known as forbearance. So we'll see that in Holy Mother's life, this really defined her life. There were so many things that she had to put up with, things that were impossible to change, that she simply had to learn to deal with a patient, without complaining, and with grace. So this was really what we see in Holy Mother's life. Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother were different types of personalities. In my mind at least, I don't separate them. They were like, we say 2 sides of the same coin, or 2 hands that are clasped together. But they had we say different types of personalities and different types of emphasis in their teachings a little bit, and in their lives. When we look at the life of Sri Ramakrishna, it was relatively smooth, we can say. Of course, his yearning for God realization was so great, it was a kind of torture for him, as if his heart were being wrung like a wet towel. But aside from that, his life was fairly smooth. He didn't have to worry about too many difficult relatives, except, of course, for Hriday. But he only was there for a few years. After that, everything was provided for him, and not too many external things for him to have to deal with. Of course, in the final days, he had terrible suffering from the throat cancer. But compared to Holy Mother's life, because she was that rare combination of perfect renunciant and also householder. She never gave up her responsibilities and duties to her relatives. So she had to deal with all these family types of problems as well. So in the case of Sri Ramakrishna, he had his Mathur Babu, he had people to look after him, and whatever he needed, everything was supplied for him. So many attendants were there all of the time. He could spend his time blissfully thinking of the Divine Mother, and having his adoring disciples around him. And aside, as I say, from the final few years, of course, where he had the terrible pain, his life was rather smooth. But the life of Holy Mother was filled with hardship. And even from an early period, that after she had her marriage, given in marriage to Sri Ramakrishna, word got back to the village that she had been married to a madman. So there was a little bit of course, those who loved her felt very sorry for her, but there were those who would just tease her and make fun of her. You've been married to someone who's insane. So this was very hurtful for her. She had to deal with all of these things. And it was so painful that she said, if my husband has really gone mad, I should be with him. This was her real incentive for going there the very first time. And when she went there, she found that he was quite all right. So she was relieved and everything, but the life that she had to live there was also one of great hardship. Now, from her point of view, she never emphasized any of these things. She said, I felt as if there were a pitcher filled of bliss within my heart at all times. But from the external point of view, we find that she had to get up early in the morning. She would get up at 3 a.m. in the morning. Because there was no place for her to really have privacy for her bath and calls of nature and everything. So early in the morning she would go when it's still dark out and bathe in the Ganga. There was one time when she was almost attacked by, what do they have, crocodiles or alligators? Crocodiles, huh? Yeah. And the whole day long she would have to go. Sometimes she felt the need to answer the call of nature. She was stuck there. Sri Ramakrishna used to compare, because she lived in the Nahabat. It's a tiny little place. Most of you have seen it. Sri Ramakrishna used to compare her life to the life of Sita in captivity under Ravana in Lanka. And this tiny place where she lived, where there hardly room to stretch out. Very often she had a companion living with her, and she had to do all of the cooking there. Her whole life was spent there. And sometimes all baskets hanging, sometimes live fish floated, splashing water on them, and longing to see Sri Ramakrishna. And in those days, when the men were there, the women weren't there, and it was generally men who were there. So aside from bringing food to him, very often she didn't have his company. And she could just look through, they would put some bamboo shades or something there. She could peek through and see what was happening inside of his room. And sometimes, Thakur knew all these things. Sometimes he would say to them, open the door on the veranda so that she can look in and see what's there. He used to say sometimes that she and Lakshmi, Didi, were there, that there are birds living in the cage there who want to be able to see it. And even M at one time thought, does the master really have birds in the cage outside? So she led a life completely outside of the view of other people. Some of the workers used to say, yes, we've heard that she lives here, but we've never seen her. Yeah. So she would spend hours just peeking through, and she couldn't even stand up straight. She looking through to see what was happening in the room where Sri Ramakrishna was. If she wasn't careful and she walked out, she would hit her head. The opening wasn't even high enough for that. So the most difficult part was she was denied this company of Sri Ramakrishna. Before all of the devotees came, it was a little bit easier. And at the time of food, generally the others would leave and she could come in and bring it. But other than that, it was very difficult for her. And all of those years of standing and bending over, she developed this very painful rheumatism in the knees and the legs. Later in life, we see her having to rub oil and everything on that. So this is her time in Dakshineshwar, which for anybody else would be a time of great deprivation, a time of great struggle and frustration and everything. For her, it was a tremendous joy. But after he passed away, then we have a combination of the terrible grief that she suffered, and also where will she go? And the money that was supposed to be given to her, Sri Ramakrishna made arrangements. The very person who couldn't think about saving money made arrangements for her so she would have some money afterwards. He even asked her at one time, how many chapatis do you eat at night? Trying to figure out how much money she would need each week in order to survive. Maybe thinking she'll stay there afterwards, but afterwards she left and she didn't get anything. And Sri Ramakrishna had asked her to stay in his native village of Kamarpukur, Of course, she didn't go directly. She went to Vrindavan first and everything. And she herself said her grief was so tremendous that she had no desire to live at that point. And if she hadn't had different visions of Sri Ramakrishna at that time, where she really felt his presence, as if he were really there, she could feel his hand in her hand. It was so tangible, that experience was. She said probably she could have given up her life. She had no desire to live even. So after that period, when she went back, somehow nobody really paid too much attention or knew very much. These young monks were now in Baranagar and so deeply immersed in sadhana that they kind of assumed that she was all right, but she's in Kamarpukur. Nobody cared for her at all. And she barely had enough to eat. Her clothes became tattered and torn. And again, the local people just derided her. They made fun of her and laughed at her. Why? Because these very orthodox villages in those days really, they expected the widows to shave their heads and to just wear plain white cloth, no jewelry at all. And we know the story with the Holy Mother, that she kept her bangles because when she went to remove them, Sri Ramakrishna said no, that the bangles are a sign that of a married woman. You remove your bangles. If your husband dies, I haven't died. I'm still here. You don't see me as if I've gone from one room to another. So she kept her bangles. And we know that when she was about to be given plain white cloth, I think it was Golab, she saw that Holy Mother herself had torn off the red border of her cloth, leaving a little bit there. So it wasn't completely white cloth. So here, she doesn't have her hair all cut off, and she's wearing the bangles and little white border on her cloth. For this, people have thought that this is scandalous, that she's not obeying these very strict rules for a widow, especially a Brahmin widow, and such an illustrious husband and everything. So she suffered greatly from that, and no good company. I don't know who was in Kamarpukur at that time, but nobody who really cared for her very much. So finally, after the other disciples found out about it and everything, they arranged for her to stay in Jardambati and then different rented places in Kolkata until they finally purchased and built that house, which we know as Udbodhan at this time. And she had no one to talk to. This was the other thing. So it was a period of great loneliness, we can say. Then she had her family to deal with. How such a pure, wonderful soul can be born with such horrible brothers that were so greedy and constantly quarreling over property and for their sister to share all of the things that she got. People would come and bring things for her and everything, and she had to constantly take care of these quarrels, the separation of property and everything. And the only good brother that she had, the youngest brother, he died very young. Now this becomes part of this whole story, that when he died, he left behind a young wife who became mad after losing her husband, and a young daughter who was just born, Radhu, who needed somebody to look after her because the mother became mad. So Holy Mother sees this little infant just crawling in the dust with no one to look after her, and this tremendous attachment comes, this Maya comes. And so she's thinking, how did such Maya come into my life? And then Thakur, she hears that voice of Thakur, this is your Yoga Maya. This is the one who will keep your mind down to the world so that you can live in the world. Otherwise, Sri Ramakrishna also needed things to keep his mind down. Otherwise, his mind will remain merged in God. And Thakur, he knew that she had work to do and to fulfill the mission for which they both came. And he told her that you'll have much to do. And she said, what can I do? I'm only a woman. In those days, women couldn't play such a prominent role. And he said, no, you'll have to do far more than I did. And really, from the time she was 33 till she passed away at the age of 67, how much she had to do. She was the mother of the monastic order, and how many disciples she had and people she looked after and everything. So anyhow, this Radhu and other nieces of hers, they all lived together in the Sudbotan. They were all a little bit crazy, Radhu fully and everything, and that mother-in-law of, or Radhu's mother, who really could just almost beat Holy Mother, throw things at her. And Holy Mother put up with all of this. So we see that she herself was the greatest example of this titiksha, of being able to remain calm and peaceful and just accept these things and put up with all of these things. Other people would have just been, say, get rid of these people, get rid of this. When she threw an eggplant at her so hard one time that it really almost injured her, even a burning piece of wood. Yeah, unbelievable things. And then giving initiation, Sri Ramakrishna, he had these gems as disciples, but everybody came to Holy Mother, and she didn't turn anybody away. Very rare occasions, if she was very ill, they would wait a little bit, but ultimately she would accept everybody. And these rare souls, Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother, giving initiation and accepting others, they really can take on this karma. It's not a joke, and Holy Mother was seen so many times, either after giving initiation or after many people coming and taking the dust of her feet, having to pour Ganges water on her feet. They're burning. Literally, she could feel it that way. So this is the life that she had, and that she led this life so sweetly and so cheerfully and so gracefully. This is why I say she was really the perfect example of this life of forbearance and a life of peace and contentment. There was another beautiful statement that Holy Mother made. She said, "Deho dharon korle dukho koshto ache, vidhataro khomota nei ei rodh korbar. Tobe shanti chaile sadhon bhajan koro." This is, again, similar to her final message. She said, if one assumes a body, if one takes human birth, one will have to experience pain and misery. Now, she's not going to go into any deep theories about all of this, karma, will of God, nothing like that. It's just the very fact that we take a human body. That there's, at one point or another, there's going to be some suffering within the body, some problems. So, if one assumes a body, takes human birth, one will have to experience pain and misery. Even the Lord himself is incapable of preventing it. We think that, we'll pray, oh, Thakur, please solve this problem. No, it doesn't work that way. There may be times when we think, yes, I've been saved, this and that. I don't question anybody's faith, but this life is not like that. There'll be suffering in this lifetime. There'll be challenges in this lifetime. So, even the Lord himself is incapable of preventing it. But if you want peace, then practice spiritual disciplines and perform worship and the like. So we have this question, how do we practice this forbearance in our lives? How do we deal with the suffering and pain and challenges that we have in life? And we'll find that everything depends on our mental attitude. This is, of course, the final conclusion with almost everything. The way Thakur used to say, everything is a question of the mind. So this is it's the mental attitude that we have. If there's no way to avoid these experiences in life, then the only difference is how we accept them. If we let it ruin our lives, or if we allow ourselves to overcome them, or if we can somehow transcend them, or whatever the technique, this is the difference. This is whether we're actually practicing titiksha or we're simply gritting our teeth and bearing some type of pain and not very happy about it and frustrated and miserable and not leading to this contentment. So we have this very nice way of understanding it. This is a common theme, but I remember hearing it first from Swami Sarvagatanandaji in Boston and Providence Swami much earlier. The suffering is inevitable, but misery is optional. So that means that we have a choice to make. It's a choice with everything. If somebody insults me, I have a choice whether I want to be insulted or not. If somebody says some nasty thing to me, they say, oh, you're dumb and stupid and you're ugly also. I say, okay. If I laugh, then I haven't been insulted. It's only an insult if I get insulted. We have to participate. So this is that thing about suffering, that we have to participate. We can experience it without feeling it to be miserable, without becoming miserable, if we want to look at it that way. So this means we are not obligated to feel miserable just because there's pain in the body or because there are some problems in the family life or social life, that we're free to choose whether we want to participate in it or not. So with Holy Mother, we find that this is the best way to understand these things. She won't go into any metaphysical types of explanations. We have always different ways of looking at these things. We come up with all types of explanations. Why do I suffer? The Divine Mother wants me to suffer because this will remove this particular problem that I have. I have some great attachment to something, she'll remove it. We have all of these ideas. Or everything is my karma, that I am the one who did it and this belongs to me, I'm responsible for it, I accept it. These are all very, very valid and helpful ways of looking at it. But Holy Mother does it, it's just very simple the way she says it. Whatever the reason, it's inevitable. So don't spend too much time trying to figure out, is it something that I did in the previous lifetime? Is there some hidden meaning behind all of this? We're faced with something very, very practical, very almost Buddhistic. Yeah, Buddha, he would just say, yes, there's suffering in life. He won't go into too many details and things, and don't try to figure out too much the why and how of all of it. Learn how to get rid of it, how to eliminate it. So, the very simple fact of life, that there's suffering. We have this very nice phrase from Gita, that this world is dukkhalayam and anityam. So there's nothing that we can hold on to, and it's the abode of suffering. Now, it doesn't mean there's not joy also. We have two ideas. One is there's an equal amount of joy and an equal amount of suffering. Swamiji himself says one time, I think there's far more suffering in life than joy. So this is just a fact of life. This is the way Holy Mother is looking at it. So whatever the cause, if we want to say, for our suffering is, if we want to see a golden silver lining to everything, this is wonderful. I have no objection to that. That this idea that whatever happens is for my good, like the baby kitten and the mother cat. This is a beautiful spiritual attitude to take. I also like this. I try to practice this. But otherwise, I'll go back to the same idea, that this is simply a fact of life. But anyhow, we have other ways of looking at this. One is if we understand that we're all in the same boat. Yeah, somehow this mitigates the little bit of suffering. Swami Swahananda, he used to give a nice example. He would say, if you wake up in the morning and you feel achy and feverish and just feel absolutely miserable, and then you read in the newspaper that the Asian flu has come and thousands of people are suffering from it. He said, then you feel a little better. So just the simple idea that this is not just inevitable for me, but for everyone, that we all have to deal with all of these things. Another point that I sometimes feel that one of the problems, one of the reasons why we get so frustrated when we have to deal with these things is that we have a wrong idea that everything should go smoothly in life. And if it doesn't go smoothly in life, then there's a glitch. Something's wrong. I look at it from the other point of view, say with health. If we're healthy, I think that this is the anomaly. That the body is filled with all these microbiotic things and germs and everything, that we're constantly anti-whatever, fighting these things. And it's just as logical that we should be sick as we should be well. So we should feel grateful if we're healthy, that this is not that we don't look at this as the normal state of affairs. The normal state of affairs is that, yeah, something will go wrong. So this is one way of looking at it, that we should feel grateful at the times that we don't have to deal with these things. So for me, the default setting is to be sick. That I expect to wake up with some aches and pains. And if that rare day comes when I actually feel pretty good, that this doesn't hurt, that doesn't hurt, I say, this is something to appreciate and enjoy. Then other times when it comes, it doesn't bother us so much. We get used to it somehow. Now another issue is that when these things happen to us, say we get a bad diagnosis, something like that, the first thing we think of is, why me? Especially those of us who are devotees, who feel the Divine Mother or Thakur Ma, that they're looking over us. Why should we be the ones to suffer? But then if we stop and think, why not me? Why should it be somebody else? Will that make me happy? I have this theory I call the law of averages theory. That if a certain percentage of people have to be sick, and I happen to be well, I'm the cause of somebody else being sick. Should I be happy because of that? I remember reading an incident in the life of Swami Swahananda, one of the great presidents of our order. He was called into headquarters, and he knew that he was going to be asked to go to a different center. And all of his brother monks, everybody loved him. He was very sweet and loving. They all told him, look, they're going to ask you to go to Cherrapunji. Cherrapunji was a tribal center, and there was terrible problems at that time, that the local people were so against the center and even trying to stop the water supply, all sorts of things, horrible things going on. And they said to him, tell them no, you won't go. And he was very simple and very guileless and, as I say, very sweet-natured. So he said, oh, okay. So they called him in and they said, look, you don't have to do it, but we think you'll be the best person. We want to send you to this Cherrapunji center. So he said, please forgive me. I'm fine where I am. Let me not go there. So they said, okay. They were very nice and kind about the whole thing. Then he went back, and then he heard that one of his brother monks was called in and to go there. And then he said, oh my God, I didn't even think, because I'm not going, somebody has to go in my place. So then he went back to headquarters and he said, no, please forgive me, I'll go. And then he decided to go. So if we think in those terms, our suffering is the cause of somebody else being free from suffering. This law of averages. That a certain percentage of people will come down with either cancer or heart disease or something like that, that we even may say, let it be me. It saves somebody else. We don't have to go that far. But at least get rid of this idea, why me? Why not me? Should I get some special treatment? I'm a devotee of God, not to be saved from these things, but so I can forbear, so that I can gracefully and cheerfully be able to put up with all of these things. And of course, the other way is really to accept this idea of karma. This is also very helpful. If we really feel that there's nobody else to blame for these things, that the suffering and everything is because of something that I deserve, and then I'll be eliminating that. I'll be canceling that out by undergoing this suffering. This also is something helpful. This Swamiji talked about this very much, that we know that beautiful poem, No One to Blame, No One But Me to Blame. At the end of one of his lectures, there's a lecture on the cosmos, and he said, "This is the only solution to the problem of suffering. Those that blame others are generally miserable with helpless brains. They've brought themselves to that pass through their own mistakes and blame others, but this does not alter their position. It does not serve them in any way. This attempt to throw the blame upon others only weakens them the more. Therefore, blame none for your own faults. Stand upon your own feet and take the whole responsibility upon yourselves. Say, this misery that I am suffering is of my own doing, and that very thing proves that it will have to be undone by me alone. That which I create, I can demolish. That which is created by someone else, I shall never be able to destroy." So this is the karma model, and we can make it something very positive, that not only am I suffering because of past things, but this is how I'm purifying the heart, that undergoing this suffering means that I won't have to do anything in the future. This is why some people feel that if this is really our last life, that there may be more suffering for us in this lifetime, because what ordinarily may have been parceled out over several lifetimes will have to get done in this one lifetime. If we have that real belief in prarabdha karma, that what we've done in the past will have to bear the results in this lifetime, that we can even look at it that way. We can say, welcome misery. Swamiji has another poem like that these are also great teachers for us. So this will be that positive side. The more we actually suffer, the quicker we're exhausting our karma. And if it's our final birth, then there may be more for us, that's all. We shouldn't have some false idea, we're devotees, I'm free. I shouldn't have to suffer from anything. And we shouldn't lose our faith. This is a problem, that many times people have such tremendous faith that something good happens, they say, Thakur's grace, I was saved. Something bad happens, what do they say? They don't know what to do. Thakur didn't care about me. So this theory of karma, it makes it a little more rational and gives us a better way of understanding all of this. Then the other model, of course, the devotee model. Whatever happens is Mother's will. All of these are spiritual attitudes. Can we prove that either karma is the real cause of suffering, or divine will is the cause, or just the nature of this? We don't have to, and we can't really. Who can prove it to the satisfaction of everyone? Impossible. But these are very helpful spiritual attitudes to take. And at different times, we can rely on different things. We really can. I've told this story many times about Swami Swahananda, that at the end of his life, that he had a couple of attendants who had left. There was no one to look after him, really, to serve him very well. So I said to him, it's so sad now, at the very end of your life, you need somebody to be with you to help you. And he said, what can I do? It's my karma. Now, I don't know if he believed it. What did he do in his lifetime that he to suffer from? I don't know if he believed it, but he said it with such contentment, even. Just not the slightest bit of concern or worry or frustration or doubt or question or why it's happening, nothing like that. Just acceptance, absolute surrender and acceptance. Yeah. So this karma theory is like that. This theory of Mother's will is also like that. Absolutely accept. Mother will not do anything for me that is not in my best interest. And then this takes the sting out of all of these things. It's not that now we don't have to deal with physical pain and other types of pain. But this is a very helpful way of doing it. Now the Jnani has another way of looking at all of this. Oh, there's pain and suffering, this belongs to the body and the mind, I'm the witness. I don't have to personalize everything. If it belongs to this karma theory and all of that, still, I'm the self. I am the witness, observer of all of these things. And also this idea of the transitory nature of everything. No matter how difficult something is, it'll pass. Nothing is forever. Even if final illness, it'll pass, and then whatever comes next will come next. So the Jnani has a different way of looking at all of this, that everything belongs to this body and mind, and I am something separate from that. We have the verse that I also quote very often from Purihara Upanishad, that if I know myself to be the self, then why will I suffer along with the suffering of the body? It doesn't make sense. Let the pain of the body remain with the body, let the obstacles in the mind remain in the mind, but I'm something separate from that. So these are all different ways. The bhakta has one way, the karmi has one way, the jnani has it another way. And one other attitude that we take, something that's very prominent in the Bhagavad Gita, if we want to make sure that we're not too dejected when bad things happen, then we learn not to be too excited when good things happen. To be equal in all of these things, to equal in good and bad, in victory and defeat, praise and blame, all of these. See, this titiksha, this deals very much also with criticism and blame. How do we put up with these things? So we learn to be even-keeled, even-minded in the midst of all of these things. Now, this verse that I recited in the beginning, there were different elements to it. One is, we don't do anything to remedy the situation. Now, for most people, and in most situations, this is too extreme. If we can easily take care of something, we do it. If we get a thorn stuck in our foot, we remove it. There's no point in being heroes and saying, no, I'll just put up with it. I don't have to do it. There'll be some that are very austere sadhus, especially we had, I would say that among the direct disciples, probably Swami Turiyanandaji and Swami Vijnanandaji. They were two who didn't really want to take any medicine or do anything. Ganges water is my medicine, the Lord is the doctor. It's a nice little Sanskrit verse that they would recite. But this is something that is very extreme. We look at the life of a Holy Mother, that even she wouldn't hesitate to rub some oil on her legs or have people do that for her when she had that rheumatism. When there was one time she was so horribly ill that her eyes were all caked, she could hardly see. And at the advice of others, of course, she went to the Singhavahini temple and ultimately was cured through that. So we shouldn't be heroes too much. At the same time, we should understand that not everything will get fixed. That there are certain things that we just have to accept and we have to deal with. So this is a very tricky thing. We have to ask ourselves, how healthy do I want to be? How much time and effort do I want to be in trying to fix every little problem in life when I can simply learn to put up with it? Swamiji had a great statement once. He said people in the West became experts in fixing things, and people in the East became experts in putting up with things. Yeah, there's a great truth behind it. Maybe a generalization, but there's also a great truth behind all of this. So, with Sri Ramakrishna, everything, he went to the doctor. Any tiny little thing, but with this final throat cancer, when he was asked to, why not pray the Divine Mother? Then he said, how can I do that? Why not use your yogic power? How can I do that? That put the mind back on this little body and everything. So ultimately, he also practiced the same type of titiksha. So this is the critical question. How do we know when to put up with things? Suppose we have a job in the office. There's somebody who's very critical. We have a boss who's always yelling at us and everything. When do we say something, and it's unfairly done, or somebody criticizing it? When do we say something, and when do we simply put up with it? Or when do we simply leave and look for another job? Yeah. I'm not going to give an answer to these things. I'm just saying that these are things we have to consider and think about. That there'll be times when we're better off just putting up with it. We have 6 more months left. We'll get our pension. So why make a fuss? We'll simply put up with it. Other times when we have to do something about it. We see, for example, in our monastic order, that the monks can be sent anywhere, and it won't always be a good situation for them. And we'll have some who will go to headquarters and say, yeah, I've been here 5 years now, it's been difficult and everything. I'll be very happy if I can be transferred some other place. There'll be others who will say, Thakur sent me, no matter what happens, I'll stay here. And both can be good monks. The second class are usually happier than the first. But still, these are decisions that have to be made, and we have to have some way of understanding what our priorities are and how to do it. For me, one of the best ways of approaching this is something called the Serenity Prayer. I know that many of you are familiar with this. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So this is a very good standard that we can use. If we can take care of something, some difficult problem, then we do it. If we can't, then we understand that this is something that we just have to learn to live with. Now, the last point you remember in this verse was no complaining, no moaning and groaning, and no worrying too much about what will happen in the future. This defeats the whole point of putting up with the difficult things. If we bear all sorts of pain and everything and constantly complaining, or constantly worrying, oh, what will happen to me, what will become of me, all of that, then it's not this titiksha. So we have to really understand that we accept certain things, and we accept them joyfully if we can. If not joyfully, then at least without complaining. And why complain to others? They have their own things to worry about. And who really cares? Constantly complain to other people, you won't get phone calls very often. Let's go and meet each other. So these are all very important elements that we have in this titiksha. So we learn to put up with certain things for whatever reason, however we understand it. It's inevitable, it's mother's will, it's my karma, however we understand it. And we do it cheerfully, that we do it without complaining or anything. And if it's something that can't be changed, then we understand it can't be changed. And we leave it at that. Okay, now, I haven't left too much time, but I want to get to this santosha, or this contentment. Now, there are 2 different types, completely different types. One is contentment that's just living in the world. How do we live in the world with a certain type of contentment? This is something that applies to everyone, not necessarily spiritual people. That this is one thing I like about Vedanta and teachings of Gita and other things, that these are applicable to people who are not interested in spiritual life, many of these teachings. That if we can learn to practice this forbearance and this contentment, then the life becomes very smooth and easy. Contentment can be just from the point of view of dharma. If we lead a good life, if we lead an unselfish life, if we help other people, we don't care too much for having a big house and a car and lots of money and everything, we lead a life of perfect moderation, then a tremendous type of contentment will come at the end of life. I've seen this. People who really, they may not have any strong belief in God or religion or spirituality, and yet they led a good life. They raised a good family. They see their children, grandchildren well settled, and they know that they left something behind, and they helped society and charitable people. There's a certain type of contentment that comes. And it's important. We shouldn't just say, no, they didn't lead a spiritual life, they're not getting God realization. It's a little bit too harsh to take that point of view. But for those of us who are really striving for something, then this contentment has to be on this one side of life. Whatever comes without too much effort, then we say, yes, it's enough. Yadricha labha santushtaha. For the sadhu, it can even get to the point where whatever food comes, even without begging, if it comes, I'm content. If it doesn't come, then I'm also content. But for us, for other people, it really means just we put forth our effort, we do what we're supposed to do, everything ruled by dharma. Whatever comes, we're content with. Now, this leaves this other side of life where we want to develop a little bit of discontent. This vyakuluta that Thakur talks about really is a type of discontent, a very strong discontent, even a type of agony that we haven't been able to realize God, or to realize the truth, or free ourselves from bondage, however we understand it. So this type of discontent goes hand in hand with the other. Yeah, whatever comes in life is okay with me because that's not my ultimate goal in life. Now, this real contentment will come after God realization. Now, for this spiritual aspirant, there's a parallel to what the worldly person, that type of contentment, there's a parallel. Because even if we don't get a high type of experience, we can say, yes, I made an effort, I did my spiritual practice, I was serious, I was sincere, and I haven't had any spiritual experience. I accept that because I know it just wasn't my time. And whatever happens, I'll be at the last moment, something may happen. But anyhow, a certain type of contentment comes if we feel that we've really done our spiritual practice, we've led a spiritual life, we've tried to be unselfish, we tried to help other people. This all leads to a certain type of contentment. But this real contentment, as I say, this is something that will come as a result of some higher type of realization. In ordinary life, leading a life of forbearance, leading a dharmic type of life, that gives a certain type of contentment. But this final contentment is something different. That getting the joy within the self alone, joy with constant communion to God, this brings us a certain contentment that really deserves a different term even. There's some type of very deep type of joy and perfect fulfillment that we have in life. So I wanted to finish, I wanted chant a few verses from chapter 6 of the Gita, and then we can sit for a few minutes. One of the things, the special features of Bhagavad Gita is that it sets a mood for us. We get examples of these great sages. We get illustrations of the state of mind that achieves this level of contentment, this level of equanimity, this level of quietude, that makes them perfect verses for meditation. So I'll read these few verses and then we'll sit for just a few minutes. Yatro paramate chittam dirudham yoga sevaya yatra chaivatmanatmanam pasyan atmani tushyati sukhamatyantikam yatat buddhigrahyamittindriyam veti yatra na chaivayam sthitas chalati tattvatah yam labdhva chaparam labham manyate natikam tatah yasmin sthito na dukkhena gurunapi vachalyate tam vidya dukkasam yoga viyogam yoga sanghitam sanishchayena yoktavyo yogo nirvinachetasa. When the mind, absolutely restrained by the practice of concentration, attains quietude, And when seeing the self by the self, one is satisfied in his own self. When he feels that infinite bliss which is perceived by the purified intellect and which transcends the senses, and established wherein he never departs from his real state, and having obtained which regards no other acquisition superior to that, and where established he is not moved even by heavy sorrow, let that be known as the state called by the name of yoga, a state of severance from the contact of pain. This yoga should be practiced with perseverance, undisturbed by depression of heart. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. Next Sunday, Swami Swahananda will be speaking on the subject. Spiritual foundations. And then the following Sunday will be our puja, the Holy Mother Puja. That will start at 11. And December 24th, we will have our Christmas Eve program, as we do every year. Liz, are you there? You'll be coming. We'll try to get some of the old youth group kids together who are not so young anymore, but and then that should be a nice program. That'll be 7:30 on the night of the 24th. And then, of course, New Year's Eve, we have our program here, a reading from the Great Master, and then January 1st, we'll have our Kalpataru at Puja. So we thank you all for coming. Please join us in the basement for refreshments. Oh, and everyone see how beautiful the shrine looks today, huh? Yeah.